All right, we got the NFL Week 9 spreads. Week 8, we went 2-2-1. And honestly, it was a great card. I'm not the type of person to toot my own horn or say, oh, we had a great card or take moral victories even though I lost the game. But honestly, it was a great card. We went 2-2-1. The Bills pushed on Sunday night. Anybody who watched that game knows that it's just crazy that they pushed. For a lot of people, they didn't even cover. We had them at Bills minus 10. And they just refused to run the ball at the end of the game. Josh Allen throwing 2 picks in the fourth quarter. Like, it was just ridiculous. Back-to-back drives, he throws a pick, I believe. And that was just crazy that we pushed there. And with the 2 L's, one of them being the Detroit Lions plus the 3.5, maybe I could have been sharper there because the Dolphins did come back against the Ravens when the Dolphins were on the road. So maybe I should have been wary of the Dolphins potentially coming back in the second half. And because Detroit tends to choke away things, because that's just what the Detroit Lions do. We saw that against the Cowboys the week before. But I did think with 3.5, we were getting just enough to work with. And if the Dolphins were to win that game, it would have been by a hook at the most. I just didn't see the Dolphins winning by more than a field goal. And of course, they end up winning by 4. Of course, the Detroit Lions put up like 27 in the first half and then don't score in the second half. Like, of course, that's what happens. The other game that we lost, the Cardinals at the Vikings, that was a poor cap. I'm just going to be honest. The Vikings were the sharp side. The Vikings offense at home going against this Arizona team that just is, it's kind of up and down. Arizona, truthfully, they're kind of a team you want to avoid betting. You want to avoid betting on the Cardinals. You want to avoid betting against the Cardinals. They just have a lot going on. There's a lot of variables. There's a lot of psychological components when it comes to Kyler Murray, Kingsbury, everything in that locker room, D-Hop coming back. They're just a wild card team. And the Vikings at home, like I said, that offense, the new head coach, offensive minded, and Kirk Cousins in that spot when he's playing in Minnesota and it's not a primetime game and he just gets the chance to sling it and front run, that's when Kirk Cousins excels. So that Vikings bet, that was a bad bet. In my mind, we should have went 4-1 for the week, but 2-2-1, starting to see the board better. There were a lot of just public plays that have been hitting the past 2 weeks, and I told you guys I don't really care about that kind of stuff. But the reason why I may check for it a little bit is because I know my natural inclination, the teams that I like, the sides that I like to bet, the things I like to do in this space, it usually ends up being the sharp side. Like, normally when I make my picks and I pick my teams and I go through the analysis, I end up checking it and it's like, oh yeah, that's the sharp side. Like, the sharps are on that side too. And it's been like that. It was like that like the past couple weeks. It's been like 3 weeks now. And the Joes have just been hitting. Like, your average Joe that's just like, well, give me this team because they're better. It's just been working. And that's just long term, it's not going to work. There's some spots this week. I haven't put anything in officially, but there's some spots this week. And we're going to get into it. I'm going to give you guys all my leans. We're going to go through every game. So let's get it started. First game, we got Thursday Night Football. The Philadelphia Eagles at the Houston Texans. The Eagles are minus 13.5 on the road. It's a big number, but to be honest, the NFL in the past few years, the big numbers have been covering. When you get a team that's just more dominant than the other team, is just flat out better than the other team, they're going to go in there and they're going to cover that spread. They're going to take care of business as long as you can trust them as a functional group. And the reason why I like the Eagles in this spot, because I do like them with the minus 13.5. I would take the Eagles as long as it's under 14. At 14, I could still take the Eagles too, but 14.5, I'm off that. But I like this group because they got a bunch of guys who have been doubted before. Jalen Hurts being doubted before. The coach being doubted before. They have a bunch of guys who have like that chip on their shoulder and who are ballers. So you get that psychological edge where it's like these guys want to show you that they can ball on a Thursday night. These guys want to show you that they're the real crop of the NFC. They want to show you that they're better than the Cowboys. They want to show you that this is going to be their year. They got a bunch of guys like that trying to prove a point. And on top of that, they have the talent to actually back it up and do it. So they have it mentally. They have it physically. It's a good team to back on a short week. And you're going against a Houston Texans team that, like, to be honest, look at their record. Look at what happened on Sunday. This team might just be done. Lovie Smith, he got great energy. He's going to rally the guys together as best as he can. But this team might just be done. It's hard to get guys to really buy in when you're in last place. It's hard to get guys to buy in when your team sucks, when you're on a short week, when you're coming off a game that you were favored. I think they were favored by the time kickoff started. I think the Texans were favored against the Titans in that game. So it's like, everyone was expecting them to win with Tannehill being out, and it's just completely demoralizing. I don't know how this team bounces back on a short week and takes care of business. If you're taking the Texans, it's simply because you're just like, wow, that's a lot of points. It's going to be hard for the Eagles to do it. Or you just think the Eagles are complete frauds. But as long as the Eagles put up a reasonable effort, they should just, like, by and large, they should just cover this spread. I mean, looking at the total 45 and a half, this game just kind of has under written all over it to me. I could see a 28-7. I could see a 27-7. I could see a 27-10. Something in that ballpark, but it just seems like the Eagles and the under are going to hit in this spot. Those would be my strong leans. We'll probably end up getting there on the Eagles minus 13 and a half. Totals, sometimes I stay away from because, Eagles defense might not give their best effort, and Davis Mills is better than people give credit for. So maybe Texans do put up something at home, but who knows? Eagles in the under for me. Next game, we got the Buffalo Bills at the New York Jets. The Bills are minus 13. And when the Bills get a big number, Josh Allen, when he's a double-digit favorite, I think it's like 6-2 now. He does cover the big number. The Jets look demoralized. It looks like it's a big spread for a reason. Zach Wilson struggled mightily last week, but it's a lot of points, and it is an in-division game. They're going to put their best foot forward. Whatever they can give, they are going to give. The Bills are a team that I trust to come out there with energy. Like, I don't expect them to be lazy and not take care of business. But in this spot, in division, a team that knows you kind of well, it's a no-touch for me. I like the Bills, but this is a no-touch game. Next up, we got the Miami Dolphins at the Chicago Bears. The Bears are +5 at home. This is a strong lean. We'll probably end up getting there. I just got to go through everything. I just got to, see how the week is coming along. But I like the Bears in this spot with the 5. I do. The Bears at home, they've been pretty good this year. The Bears at home, they covered against the Texans. They won outright against the Niners. They've been formidable at home. This is a team that puts their best foot forward when they are at home. Justin Fields, they seem like they're able to scheme up some type of offense for him now. They seem like they're getting their foot in on the offensive side of the football. Chase Claypool is coming over. Claypool, sometimes he can be disappointing, but we're not going to act like he isn't a super talented player. He's very talented. Him with Mooney now, you're giving Justin Fields something that he can work with a little bit now. So getting 5 points in this spot. The Dolphins, they did cover when they were at Ravens as a dog. They did cover as favorites at Detroit. But Chicago getting more points than the Lions, I don't know if that really makes sense to me. I think the Bears are a better team than the Lions at this point. So I feel like we are getting a couple extra points in this spot. And I also think Miami now, second game on the road, back-to-back road games, and you barely covered the first one. It took everything to do that. Now you're playing a Chicago team that appears to have a more competent coaching staff. It's going to be hard for them to cover the 5. I could see this game ending up in a 3-point game, 4-point game, maybe like Detroit even. But I would not be surprised if Chicago won this game outright, and if it was just a trap spot for Miami. There's no way I could take Miami in this spot. Chicago Bears plus the 5 would be the play. Next, we got the Indianapolis Colts at the New England Patriots. The Colts are +5.5. I'm not going to get into this game too much, but it's hard for me to take Mac Jones as a big favorite right now. -5.5, Mac Jones, I just can't do it. Like, we don't even know who has the better quarterback in this game. And I know that might be a hot take to some, but truthfully, like, I heard the Colts quarterback. I didn't watch that game. I heard the Colts had control of that game for the most part. I did watch the highlights, and, there were a couple things that didn't go their way, but overall, like, he didn't look too bad out there. He didn't look too bad. Matt Ryan was hurting them more than he was helping them. Just by getting rid of Matt Ryan, this Colts team is a little better. And they got a quarterback that's mobile now. So I really don't know if Mac Jones coming off this injury is better than the Colts backup QB who's now starting, Sam Ellinger, I believe his name is. And Mac Jones, even before the injury, wasn't all that this year. So coming off of the injury, it's going to be very tough for him. And I just can't take the Patriots as a favorite. So Colts are nothing. Colts getting the points. It might end up being a play just off the value. There's so much value there taking the Colts getting all these points. And we do know that the Colts, as a dog, under Frank Reich, they do cover these games. When the Colts are like dogs like this, like when they went at Niners last year when they were just doing horrible, their back was against the wall. They went to the Niners and they won when they were +4 dogs. Like, this is the type of spot that Frank Reich usually takes care of. So Colts would be the play. Next game, we got the Minnesota Vikings at the Washington Commanders. The Vikings are -3.5 right now. It's a Kirk Cousins comeback home spot going against his old team. And I just don't know if Kirk Cousins is really the type of guy mentally who's going to come in there and ball because he's playing his former team, or if he's going to come in there and lay the egg. I think he's going against a team that has a really good defense, playing with a lot of energy. And I thought that Carson Wentz coming to the Commanders was going to make the players around the Commanders say, oh, yeah, we got to rally behind this guy. It seems like they weren't fully behind Wentz. It seemed like they got some bad breaks. They had a lot of penalties in the first couple weeks of the season. But now with Heinicke, they got a lot of energy. It seems like the guys love Heinicke. He's just the guy that they rally behind, even if he's not the most talented. And when you're getting more than a hook at home, you guys know where I'm going with this. It's just like Detroit last week. More times than not, this spot is going to hit. And it did not hit last week, which almost makes me feel more confident that we're going to get the luck on our side this time around. I like the Washington Commanders with the +3.5. The hook is huge. I saw this line going up and down. It was at 4. It was at 3, 2.5, whatever. We need at least 3.5. At 3, I don't know if I'm going to be on this game, but at 3.5, I can pretty confidently tell you guys that I probably will end up on the Commanders. The Vikings are due to not cover a game. The Vikings aren't as good as their record shows that they are. They're a team that can be had. You know, they're stopping the run pretty well, but I do think that you can run on them if you establish it well enough. If you're getting enough of a push, I do think you can run on them, and I know that you can throw on them. And Heineke's going to sling that ball. Terry McLaurin, he's probably the most underrated player in the league. Like, that dude is as good as it gets at the wide receiver position, and nobody really talks about him because he plays for Washington, but he's a straight dog. And Heinicke, I love it. He's the type of guy that's just going to throw it up there. And since you're so good at wide receiver, show me, make a play. And the wide receivers make a play or they get the PI. Like, good things happen when you sling the rock deep to good wide receivers versus a bad secondary. So I like Washington in this spot with the 3.5. Strong lean to the Washington Commanders. I'll probably end up getting there if I see a 3.5. Make sure to check for that on my social medias, Twitter and Instagram. I post all the plays. The link will be down below. Next game, we got the Green Bay Packers at the Detroit Lions division game. You know, a lot goes on in these division games. The Packers are -3.5. In this spot, it's so tough for me because I just told you guys about that 3.5 at home, how we like it so much. But the Packers seem like they're due. They seem like that Bills game, especially that second half, like they were starting to come together, starting to scrape it up a little bit and, you know, figure out how they're going to mesh. They were running the ball really well. And I could see that carrying over into this game against the Lions, who just have a terrible defense. Like, the Lions' defense is just so young and inexperienced, and they can be had at any point in time. I don't see how Aaron Rodgers doesn't just own them the same way that he owns the Bears. Like, you know, like the Packers take care of business in this kind of spot, you know. And I know Detroit has had some luck with the Packers in the past few years, but you know, the Packers, they clean up in this kind of spot. And you're getting Green Bay, and it's not a big number. And, you know, they're basically saying if this was at home, it'd be Packers -6.5. And I know I'd be all over it if that was the case in Lambeau. So it's like, you know, in Detroit with the 3.5, it's tough. It's tough. But because the spot says take Detroit, but momentum and what's going on with the players and everything, this could be Green Bay's get-right game, where they start to make their playoff push after getting a win against the Lions. So this is a no-touch for me. Next up, we got the Los Angeles Chargers at the Atlanta Falcons. The Chargers are -3.5. I don't want anything to do with this game. Not talking about this game. I'll just say this. Both of these teams can score. Both of these teams have defenses that are very underwhelming. Just first glance, looking at the over-under at 50, I would say that this probably ends up going over. Like, it would not surprise me at all if Mariota and them are able to just run the ball on the Chargers. If the Chargers have a couple of meltdowns and it leads to easy points for the Falcons, and then the Chargers offense will just get cooking on the Falcons because the Falcons can't stop anybody. So maybe an over hits here with the cover. Of course, the smart side, the sharp side will probably end up being the Falcons with the 3.5. Getting value at home, but I just don't want anything to do with it. The Chargers type of team come in here and lay a complete egg, or come in here and just obliterate the Falcons. I'm not touching this game. Next game, we got the Carolina Panthers at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Panthers are +7. Give me the Bengals here. Bengals -7. I'm not going official with it just yet, but I like the Bengals with the -7. If it gets to 7.5, I saw it there at one point earlier in the week. I don't know if I'm going to interest myself in touching a 7.5. We know those hooks end up hurting us a lot, but at -7, I do like the Bengals a lot. We saw them clean up on this same spread against the Falcons when they were at home. This Bengals team, when they're at home, they will clean up. They will put up a good performance. They will start to figure it out as the season goes along, just like they did last year. And this is also a fade against Carolina, who we were on Carolina last week. That was a late ad. They covered with the hook. They really should have won that game. One of the wildest games you're ever going to watch. And, I like PJ Walker. I like DJ Moore. I like the energy that Carolina has. I told you guys that this might be a buy team, might be a team that we could get some bets in. And I feel like we've won. I got to think about it, but we've won every game that we've had Carolina in. We had Carolina week 3 when they had lost every game. We had them against the Saints as home dogs. And we had Carolina last week, and we did lean heavy. I had some money on it unofficially. I don't count that, as, of course, but unofficially I did hit with the Giants against Carolina in week 2. So I've had a good read for this Carolina team throughout the season. And I leaned Rams against Carolina when the Rams were playing terrible, and I figured the Rams would clean up versus Carolina. So I've had a good pulse on this Carolina team. Right now is a little bit tricky for them, though, because when you lose a game the way that they just lost that game, and you drop a big one, and you play the Falcons coming up on Thursday night, you're going to get your lick back versus that same Falcons team, and you might be looking ahead to that game. You might be more focused on that Thursday night primetime spot against your division opponent, a game you really need, a game you're going to really want back. They're home dogs. We might end up on Carolina in that spot. We could very well end up on Carolina in that spot. But in this spot, coming off a game like that, like, how much can this team stand? Like, they're going through it right now. Everything's just falling apart, and then you lose a game like that. Now you got to go on the road again, second road game in a row. Oh, Cincinnati just getting embarrassed on Monday Night Football. Now they're going to want to fix some things. They got a lot of things on film they can improve upon. They know what they're going to do now that Jamar Chase is gone. They failed, and now they're going to, rework the system and come up with some good plays. It's hard not to take the Bengals here. Bengals -7 feels very sharp, and I probably will end up on it. Bengals -7. Next game, we got the Las Vegas Raiders at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Raiders are -1.5 as of right now. And before I even talk about this game, I just got to say I told you so. I feel like I was the only person in the world that had the Raiders losing to the Saints last week. The only reason we didn't go official and make money on that game was because Lattimore was out. I wanted Lattimore to go against Devontae. Of course, Devontae coming off the illness, he had like a flu or something. He wasn't feeling that good, and the Raiders weren't generating anything anyway. So it didn't really end up mattering that Lattimore was out. But I like the Saints team when they have Lattimore, so I just stayed away from that game. But Raiders in those 10 a.m. spots, going as a favorite on the road. They didn't do it against the Titans. They didn't do it against the Saints. This is not a Raiders spot. This isn't usually where you get the Raiders playing their best ball. I will say, though, they probably stayed down south because, they went from playing the Saints to the Jags, so they probably didn't come back to the West Coast. Now you're going to get your body adjusted to the time zone. You're going to be thinking about that tough L all week long. So maybe this is a little bit of a different environment than the first 2 road L's as a favorite. But it's hard for me to see the Raiders really being that much better in this spot. If they are, it'll be very impressive. Like, if the Raiders come out here and ball and Josh McDaniels is just dialing it up, I'd be very impressed. I would be very impressed. I don't see that. I see this Raiders team later in these upcoming weeks. We're going to make money betting on them, but in this spot, it's hard for me to take the Raiders, guys. I just can't do it. But with the Jaguars as well, you're getting them as a home dog, and you're getting them. A lot of things haven't been going their way the past few weeks. You would feel like they're due for a win, but they just always find a way to blow games. And, young team, Doug Peterson, do you really trust his game management skills? This is a no touch for me. This has no touch written all over it. And I would advise you guys to do the same. But moving on, we got the Seattle Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals. The Seahawks are +2. Don't you want to take the Seahawks here? They've just been playing good football. They're getting good coaching. They're fundamentally sound. They don't beat themselves. And then you got an Arizona team that just does the exact opposite. Like, there's drama with the quarterback, drama with the head coach. The team has a lot of turnovers, makes mistakes. They do dumb things. Like, so like it's tough to really want to back the Cardinals in this spot. Do the Cardinals really deserve to be -2 at home? They were even -3 earlier in this week. Do they really deserve to be like that? I don't know. This game is tough. Seahawks won the last matchup in Seattle. These two teams play each other. It's usually tough. I got nothing for this game. Next game and last game on the afternoon slate, we got the Los Angeles Rams at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Rams are +3. And man, before the year, we thought this was going to be a great game. Like, before the season started, this was like a game where it was like, mark your calendar. The Rams are going to Tampa, rematch of the playoff game where we thought it was Brady's last game, all that good stuff. And now you got a Rams team that's just like, oh, the Rams just look broken. Like, they look broken. And you got a Tampa Bay team that, like, the things that they're good at, they're supposed to be a great defensive team. They couldn't stop Lamar to save their lives last week. And then you got Tom Brady, who we know is the GOAT quarterback, but I mean, Tom Brady, I don't want to say washed because it looks more like a mental thing, but Tom Brady looks a little out of it, to say the least. I mean, we've been fading Tampa Bay all year. The times that we do bet against Tampa Bay, we cash. We've never bet on Tampa Bay. We avoid the Buccaneers, and it's worked out well for us. And I'm glad I'm not somebody who's been just like losing tickets on the Buccaneers this season. In this game, it's really tough. It's really tough. Just first glance, like not even doing any deep evaluation, the Rams do seem to have the Buccaneers number, whether it's at home or on the road. They beat them on Thursday night with Jared Goff a few years ago, the year that Tom Brady won the Super Bowl. And they beat them last year in LA with Stafford, and then they beat them in the playoff game. But I mean, that was a different Rams team. Stafford looks like a shell of himself with these injuries. We know Cooper Kupp is now banged up. He's probably going to play, but he's banged up. Shouldn't the Bucs figure it out here? Like, shouldn't the Bucs? Some people thought the Bucs were going to figure it out against the Ravens last week. That game was very tough for me. But maybe the sharp side was just a week too early with the Bucs last week, and the Bucs cover up and take care of business now this week. Maybe the tide turns, but it's hard for me when I know that the Rams own the Buccaneers. So I got nothing for this game. Two teams that have just been disappointing. Last two games, we got the primetime games. We got Sunday Night Football. The Tennessee Titans at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Titans are +12.5. Tough. If we're just comparing these teams when they've been in this situation this year, have the Chiefs been favored by this much against the team this year? I'm trying to think. I feel like they haven't been favored by this much. The Titans have gotten this many points before against the Bills on the road, and we know the Titans just got obliterated in that game. The Bills, though, they have kind of more firepower and a better defense where they can kind of do that to you, especially early in the season with the type of rhythm they were having. I don't know if Kansas City is quite as dominant and if they can really do that to the Titans the same way the Bills did. I also think the Titans are a little more confident now that they got some wins under their belt and they're starting to find their rhythm again. So it's hard for me to touch this game. Man, that's a lot of points. I like Vrabel a lot. Like, I like Vrabel a lot. More than most, I like Vrabel. Oh, this is a lot of points. Like, I want to say take the Titans, but they end up getting obliterated on primetime. I can't do it. This is a game I stay away from. And last game of the week, Monday Night Football. We got the Baltimore Ravens at the New Orleans Saints. The Ravens are -3 on the road. This line feels about right. Two teams, different conferences. They don't play each other a whole lot. We don't have a lot of data. The Ravens finally covering a game. They beat the Buccaneers on the road. Now it's the second road game in a row. Do we trust Baltimore? Is Baltimore starting to figure it out? I'm always wary of these teams that play back-to-back road games. Like, the second road game is when I start to be like, oh yeah, the travel, not being at home for a long period of time. Like, I start to feel like, okay, you can be had. Kind of like when the Niners whooped on the Panthers, and then the next week they went to Atlanta, and then the Falcons just whoop them. Like, I think about situations like that when I look at a game like this, and you get the Saints another week at home, another chance to get right. It feels like they've been home for a while now, and it's tough. It's tough. It's tough. I don't like to go against home dogs. The sharp side is the Saints. I'm trying to think how the injury report is going to play out. I need to look at the Saints injury report. I try not to take the Saints when they don't have Lattimore. It would be nice if their wide receivers are playing too. But yeah, if the Saints are healthy, I probably end up on the Saints. So at +3, Saints healthy, it's Saints. If the Saints end up healthy and the line goes down to like 2.5 or something, I don't think I can take the Saints without getting the full 3. I need the full 3. Like, points are so important in the NFL. I'm not the type of guy who caps games like, oh, this team is gonna win by is gonna lose by 3, so I need at least 3.5. Like, when I take the dog, I think the dog can win the game or will cover substantially, but NFL is just so weird and tricky that you want those points just to be safe. Like, you want the best line just to be safe. In the NBA, you guys know, for those of you that follow my NBA picks, you know that I don't go as crazy about like, oh, the line moved one way opposite of us or whatever. Like, I don't trip too much about that. But in the NFL, I want every little penny I can get. So Saints, if healthy and if the line is still at +3, I'll take it. We see -120 right here on the odds. I need -110, but -120, it's whatever. So a lot of strong leans this week. A lot of games that we're going to potentially be on by the weekend. Friday or Saturday, I'll come back around and let you guys know what the officials are. Maybe I get swayed into one of these games that I didn't have strong thoughts on as of right now, but I'm pretty sure the only games that I'm going to end up having a play on are the games that I talked about a lot in this video. So thank you guys as always. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Till next time, peace.